Hello everyone and welcome back to the Dark Pixel Podcast. My name is Mike and Kaysen and Landon are not with me today because Kaysen became a father literally like 24 hours ago at the time of recording this. The time right now is 1:02 a.m. on July 5th. I believe I received a text from him about that same time on July 4th, yesterday, saying that his wife had delivered the baby. So Kaysen is a father now. He and his family are together, obviously supporting him and congratulating him and welcoming his new baby daughter into the world. So for today, I'm going to be here by myself. But I wanted to show you guys this new template that I made since we are no longer in the same central location, at least for now. I set up a new template so that Kaysen, Landon, and I will be able to do the podcast and you'll still have some video even though we're in separate locations. You know, it's crazy. I could not find a single picture of Landon that was in widescreen format in 16:9. Every single picture of his face I could find was either square or vertical. What's up with that? You gotta get a picture of your face that's in 16:9 so I can put it in here. Anyways, this is the format I'm thinking of doing for now. This is kind of like a first draft of the template. Let me know what you guys think. Obviously, we have plans in the future to have like guests on, and so like what I might do is make a fourth box and kind of put me align, my box here a little taller or a little higher in the frame up there. Do you see that? Holy crap! Look at that. Look how my webcam changes the white balance when I put my hands up like that. What the fetch? For you listening audio only, you can't see it. You have to check us out on YouTube. But seriously, I lift my hands up and down and it's like changing the white balance. It's probably on auto white balance. I should probably change that. Anyways, not going to mess with it for now. I could create a fourth box down aligned with Landon and put me up here a little bit so we could have a fourth person down there. There are other ways I can do it, but this is what I got for now. And hopefully it will suffice. Let me know if you guys like the look. And let's go ahead and jump into our topics for today. But everybody, congratulate Kaysen on his new baby daughter. Very, very happy and excited for him and his wife and the whole families. Great news. Very, very excited to meet the new baby myself. Okay. So I was looking up like news topics to talk about today, and there was literally nothing that interested me. I was thinking maybe to just give a few thoughts on that new Final Fantasy 15 mobile game, Final Fantasy 15: The New Empire. But honestly, it's not even worth talking about. It's made by Machine Zone. The same guys that make, like, I think it's Clash of Clans and some other mobile title. There's not a whole lot of good press surrounding it. Let's just put it that way. So I'm just not going to bother talking about that today. There was a new article on Kotaku about Lost Sphere. So I was thinking maybe I'll, pitch in there. It seems like they're addressing a lot of the things that people criticized about I Am Setsuna, so that's really nice. But I don't know, just nothing I really felt like that I had a lot to say on that topic. So I'm just going to jump in and go straight to some of your questions, the viewer suggested topics. The first one I wanted to address today was from Hardcore17. He actually asked this one last week, but we didn't get to it. But he asked again, so I'll go ahead and answer it for now, since, I think it's relevant now that I'm actually in my new office space. By the way, ignore this, like, blanket behind me. Again, if you're listening audio only, you can't see this, but I've got this big blanket behind me. I'm still working on the acoustic treatment of this room. I've got my acoustic panels on the back walls behind my monitors, my speakers. But I haven't gotten bass traps up, and I haven't gotten acoustic panels on the other walls. I'm actually thinking about doing fiberglass panels instead of the normal like acoustic foam that you see in a lot of like other YouTubers' videos and stuff like that. Thinking about maybe building those myself. So I'm considering the options for the room, trying to make it sound as good as possible. But anyways, for the time being, I've got this big blanket sort of like draped up behind me to sort of dampen and absorb some of those reflections. But in any case, I'll get this office finished hopefully in the next couple weeks, and it'll look and sound great. So anyways, I'm in a different location now, and Hardcore's question is, hey guys, question on the recent logistics change. How far away exactly did Mike move? Was it like 10 or 15 minutes, an hour, over an hour? How do you see this impacting the channel, reviews, podcasts, etc.? And does it mean the end of the Dark Pixel main channel? How long do you plan on keeping the channel going? Also, congrats to Case on becoming a dad. Okay, so Case and Landon live in Provo, Utah, which is about an hour south of where I am right now. I am in North Salt Lake. So it's depending on the day, like a normal drive, I would say, from Provo, where we lived, or where they're still living, to Salt Lake City is between 45 and 50 minutes. And then I'm about 10 minutes north of Salt Lake City in North Salt Lake. So about an hour away. How this affects the way we work together, obviously our podcasts have not, been the same for the last couple of weeks as we've been trying to figure this out. I've been living on my parents' couch for the last, couple of weeks, and I didn't have access to my computer or any of my office equipment. So I was just using, my sister's computer basically to do those. But now that I'm in here and I've built this template and everything, this, at least for the short term, is going to be the way that we're going to be doing podcasts, at least. So you will be able to see video of our faces and everything like that. But we'll be doing it over like Google Hangouts or Skype or something like that. And we'll use this template to do the podcasts. And I think that that'll work out just fine until we have a studio built here in the offices in the office building that I'm working out of right now. I'm going to be producing some different shows and stuff for the companies here. And so they're going to have a whole studio that's actually just outside of the office here. That's being built for that purpose. There'll be like a podium, like a desk with microphones on it where we can do reviews, where we can do podcasts, where we can do all kinds of different shows. And so we'll be able to do our podcast there as well. So that's something to look forward to as construction is finished in the other room. So in terms of, let's see, the other part of the question had to do with how it's going to affect reviews and stuff. It shouldn't affect reviews too much. Right now, like I've been really, really busy these last basically week. Well, I guess it's been about a week and a half since I started actually working, in the new job here. So it's a really, really busy time right now. They're ramping up for a big event called GTX, Game Tyrant Expo, which is going to be a big esports tournament happening at the Vivint Smart Home Arena, which is the Utah Jazz, the NBA's Utah Jazz professional sports arena. So I've been working on video and marketing material to begin promoting that, which should be released and start ramping up next week. So anyways, I've been really, really busy working on that, but I'm trying to always make time as well for producing video content here for the channel. I'm still very much dedicated to growing the channel, making getting through my Final Fantasy review series, and then moving on to some interesting new projects that I have in mind. Of course, covering a lot of those old classic RPGs that people love. So as far as that goes, that should remain the same. Landon recently just put out his most recent episode of Lost in Translation. If you haven't seen that yet, actually, not a lot of people have. I was kind of surprised. I think the video only has 1,000 views or just over 1,000 views right now. It's a great video. If you haven't seen it yet, please watch it. And if you are actually unaware of Landon's Lost in Translation series, watch the whole series. It's actually a very fascinating series. all about, the cultural influence, how Japan's culture has influenced the games that we grew up loving. So it's really good. Please take time to watch that. He has a second part of that coming out soon. Kaysen right now, since obviously the baby was just born, he's going to be busy for at least a couple of weeks, kind of out of commission. But he'll be back with his Kingdom Hearts series that he's still working on. I know a lot of you guys are really, really curious about if that's ever coming out. It is. He's been working hard on it. So in any case, the channel should remain generally the same. Same like upload schedule and everything like that. It's just that in the meantime, like right now, as I'm trying to get myself situated up here, and they were trying to get themselves situated in their home offices that they're working out of now, things got slowed up a little bit, but we should be able to fire on all cylinders and keep this thing going now that I'm actually in the setup. I've actually set up my office up here. So the Dark Pixel main channel is not coming to an end. It's definitely more difficult with our schedules right now to release as consistently as we did when we started that channel, for sure. But we actually made a video that was supposed to be out by now. I can't really talk about it, but it's done. But unfortunately, we've been told that we have to delay the video into 2018 because I'm trying to think of what I'm allowed to say. The company is delaying the release of what they're working on to 2018, so we can't upload that video. But we actually edited. I did a really cool musical score and awesome sound design for it. It's a cool video, but we can't release it until 2018 now. So that kind of derailed that. But we're going to talk about it here. We have a lot of ambitious projects and a lot of things going on. And of course, we're all working second jobs. So time is limited, but we're trying to find a way to get consistent uploads. And when I say consistent, I mean like consistent as in every season or once every couple months or something on the main channel. But it's just tough. It's just tough right now, given how little time we have between doing the Dark Pixel main channel, our second jobs, and then trying to make time for that as well. But it's not coming to an end. We will figure this out eventually, and we will put more focus on that in the future. We're filmmakers, and we love making films, and we're not going to give up on that, anytime soon. So hopefully that answers your question sufficiently. Let's move on to the next one. This comes from Jarvis Mott. He says, do you prefer your characters to have all their skills and abilities available from the start of a game, with worlds and levels designed to slowly introduce their use, for example, Super Mario, Donkey Kong Country, or for your abilities to come in a natural progression, leveling up, buying new skills, acquiring the Metroidvania style? It's hard to say that I have a preference. I think that both of them can work extremely well. I think all the games that you mentioned in your examples are some of the best examples of either approach and shows how easily either one can work. I don't know. I mean, I really like the Super Mario approach, where basically the whole first world is structured as a tutorial. You don't know it's a tutorial. It doesn't feel like a tutorial. They're not telling you how to play the game. But the levels are structured in a way to teach you about everything you need to know with the platforming and the power-ups and all that stuff, so that you'll be able to then proceed through the rest of the game as it becomes incrementally more challenging. I really like that approach. But then again, I mean, the second approach, where you're learning the abilities and progressing through the game, I mean, that's really cool too, because you feel like you're getting stronger as you go. You feel like a sense of accomplishment with each level up or with each new thing that you acquire. And that in and of itself can feel very rewarding too. So I don't know. It's hard to say that I prefer one or the other. I think that it all depends on what you're going for, you know, what the game is that you're making. I guess for games like Super Mario and Donkey Kong Country, it's more about developing a skill, and they give you all the tools that you need right at the beginning, and then you have to just get good at the game. You have to develop a skill playing the game in order to overcome the challenges. So when you're not able to get past something, it reflects on your own abilities, and you just have to get better at the game in order to proceed. So it feels like it's more in your control. Whereas in a lot of RPGs and stuff like that, I'm speaking in generalizations here, of course. I'm not saying that this is the case for every single game. I'm just saying that, generally speaking, you know, if you come across a boss that's hard to beat or something like that, a lot of times it might just be because you're a little bit under-leveled. You need to do some level grinding or something like that. Or you don't have this or that ability that was, you know, that you could have acquired in the last area or something like that and didn't come across. So, like, I like the idea that I have all the tools I need to beat this. I just need to get better at the game, versus feeling like, you know, oh, I just need to get stronger. I need to level up a little more. Like, that idea, I like the first design philosophy a little bit more. But at the same time, there is a really strong sense of accomplishment, almost like an addicting nature to progressing your character, slowly getting stronger as you go throughout it. And I really enjoy that as well. You know, with the Metroid video games, Metroid Prime in particular, you know, how you lose your powers at the beginning of those games and then you sort of acquire them. You get pieces of your armor back as you're going through it. That's all very rewarding as well. So I like them both, man. I like them both. I can't say I prefer one or the other. Good question, though. Thanks for asking. Okay. Next question is, what do you guys think of the narration style of letting actions purely drive a narrative? I personally find this style to my liking, despite how I love classic story structure in video games, with actions better defining the narrative. I think of games like Super Metroid and Metroid Prime 1, discovering a world and taking in everything without dialogue. Can follow up with a question of, what do you guys think of the phrase in both games and movies, show don't tell? I'm a heavy believer in this and feel that both games and movies are in fault of not doing this as much. Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand exactly what you're asking. So when you say, what do you, by the way, that's from Velhart. He says, what do you guys think of the narration style of letting actions purely drive a narrative? I think what you mean is, rather than having cutscenes where exposition is given through dialogue, you're asking about like discovering the story, Metroid Prime style, or say Dark Souls style, where you read descriptions or you're scanning things and sort of like piecing together what happened. Again, I think that both approaches are completely valid, and depending on what you're making, one would, you know, be better for that particular experience than another. Like, I can't imagine what Dark Souls, for instance, would be like if they had a lot of cutscenes with like dialogue and exposition and characters with this like really deep development and a lot of, you know, really, you know what I mean? Like really strong dialogue, heavy dialogue. I can't imagine that that game would feel the same at all. Like, the whole philosophy of that game is about driving exploration, and I think that they structured their storytelling around that, around the central design philosophy. Like, Dark Souls is all about exploring, pushing yourself, going a little bit further, and I think that the way that they chose to deliver the story within that game, like, perfectly supplements that idea. Like, the gameplay and the story sort of like work together. They gel together very well. I'd say the same is true of Metroid games. And so for those particular examples, like obviously driving the narrative through actions of the player, through exploration, through reading descriptions, scanning things, interacting with the world is obviously the best choice for those games. I don't know how on earth a Final Fantasy game would feel if they tried to do it that way. You know what I mean? It really just depends on what the central experience is meant to be. And in games like Metroid and Dark Souls, it's meant to be about exploration. Whereas in Final Fantasy, or something more narrative driven in the traditional sense, it's more about the characters and the story itself. So again, it just really depends on what is your vision, what is it you're going for, and both in gameplay and in story. And how can you make those two things supplement each other to the best of your ability? Moving on to the second part of your question, though, you said, what do you think of the phrase, both in games and movies, show, don't tell? Very interesting that you brought this up, because I'm working on, aside from my Final Fantasy XII review, I'm working on, finally, the second episode of Understanding Story. And that is going to be the topic of that episode, show, don't tell. Without giving away too much of, like what I was planning on putting in that video, this is a very, very important, I think, philosophy, for lack of a better word, to understand as a writer. And it's one that I think video games in particular don't always do so well. So for those of you who don't know what show, don't tell means, if anyone's taken a creative writing class, they beat this into your head from day one, like show, don't tell, show, don't tell, show, don't tell. And what that's taken to mean a lot of times in creative writing is add more adjectives, be more expressive in how you describe something. And to an extent, that's true in that medium when you're doing creative writing. You don't want to just tell the audience Joe is sad. You want to describe what Joe's facial expressions are, what his body language is. You want to describe the tenseness of the air in the room, how his maybe his face is shivering, or something like that. You get very descriptive about what Joe looks like, what he sounds like, and you describe that without saying Joe is sad, and people get the idea that he's sad. You describe the tears welling in his eyes, and you just use descriptive language to show the audience rather than tell them what he feels. Of course, in a visual medium like video games or films, you don't have quite the same problem or approach to the show, don't tell idea, because you can literally just show Joe is sad by showing him crying or whatever on screen. You don't have to describe that in your script necessarily. I mean, you can say like he sheds a tear or something like that, but the point is that you don't have to have all these descriptive adjectives to give the reader the idea of what he's feeling. You can literally just show that. And so in visual mediums, I think it's even more important that you use that tool that's available to you. You have a camera for a reason. You can show what a character thinks, feels, or whatever in nonverbal communication, rather than just having the character blurt what they think and feel all the time. What I'm going to be using as examples of this, I just got back from E3 a couple weeks ago, and I was playing Fire Emblem Echoes, Shadows of Valentia, and Fire Emblem Fates Conquest was the one that I was playing. And I love the Fire Emblem series. I'm not going to sit here and bash on it. I think it's very good. I think both of these games are pretty good. They're decent in their own way. I had fun playing them, and I obviously have criticisms of them as well, but I think overall they're decent games. And it's been so long since I've played like the older Fire Emblem games. Like my very first one was Path of Radiance on the GameCube. I just remember being blown away by that. I just loved it. Loved it. I can't remember feeling any negative feelings about the story or anything like that. Now, this was many, many years ago, and I don't remember that much about it. But, you know, I moved straight on to Fire Emblem for the Game Boy Advance, which was the first one that we got localized in the States. I played Sacred Stones after that. I've played them all, the ones that have been released. I loved Shadow Dragon. I just really was way into the series. And when Awakening came out, I loved that one too. Loved everything about it. And it wasn't until I played Conquest in particular, and then Echoes now too. I think Echoes is the better game of the two for sure. But I couldn't put my finger on like why I wasn't getting into Fates, like why I wasn't loving it the way that I loved Awakening or any of the ones that came before. And again, it's been a few years now even since I played Awakening, so I'd have to dive, and that's what I'm planning to do, is dive a little bit more into how these game stories are presented so that I can sort of make a case for what I'm talking about, or what I'm planning to talk about. But at least in Fates and in Echoes, I really noticed this problem with the game constantly wanting to tell me rather than show me what characters feel. You know, they like to sort of like beat you over the head with, I'm feeling this way. And they'll describe to the player, in Echo specifically, oh, these two characters, they care about each other so much. They spend so much time together. They have this strong bond. They keep telling me that they have a very strong bond, but they haven't shown me how that developed. They just tell me. Now, I understand that, especially in that type of game, which is, you know, a tactical RPG, they don't have these involved cutscenes. It's more or less just a dialogue box with images of the characters, like character art that they have a couple of different like facial expressions for. It's not exactly the right type of game for the kind of showing that I'm looking for, and I'm willing to, you know, concede that this might not be the perfect like genre for doing the in-depth storytelling that I usually like to see. However, I still felt like it was, I saw it really commonly throughout the game that they would just describe or tell me about how much these two characters loved each other and cared about each other. But I didn't feel like I was able to be there, in a sense, to like be there with the characters as they developed those feelings and why it is that they feel so strongly about each other. And because of that, the later game payoffs, I wasn't feeling it. Like, I didn't feel how strongly they cared about each other. I mean, I saw, or I should say I heard in the performances of the actors, like I think that was very convincing. I thought the voice acting in general was really quite good in the game. Performances were good. Music was usually pretty good. The little anime scenes that they did were well done. But I just didn't feel like I really came to understand like what it was she was feeling. I'm trying not to spoil the game. When she sort of lost everything in early childhood, and how she came to be in the same village with Alm. Celica is the name of the female character, and Alm's the name of the male character. How they grew that bond together. It's just sort of like told to me that it did happen. But I didn't get to see it myself, so to speak. And when you do that, when you go the route of telling instead of showing why characters think, feel, and bond the way they do, it becomes a little bit more difficult down the line to get truly invested, to really feel the pain that they go through in the story, or feel the happiness that they feel, or relief, or whatever. So I'm a big proponent of show, don't tell. I think it's incredibly important if you want your audience to be emotionally invested in the characters. We've got to be shown why they are the way they are, why they think the way they think, rather than being told they think this way. It's like, I can be told the character is upset in the scene or whatever, and I could visibly see it. The performance of the actor could be wonderful. It's like, oh, he's really upset. But to understand why from his point of view or her point of view, to really get into their own head and their own heart and feel for them, we need to be shown what led them, what's the context behind why they are feeling this way right now. And you can't do that all the time. It's not possible, especially in films like the really short format of them. You know, you only have a couple of hours to establish all this. Sometimes you've got to just tell. It's just not, you know, in a video game or in a television series, you get more opportunities to do that because, you know, people are open to the longer format of there. Many episodes. You could spend a matter of years telling a story in you know, dozens or sometimes even 100 episodes or whatever. Sometimes even beyond that. But in a film, you can't do that. In games, you still get, you know, especially in RPGs, you know, in the 50 hours and plus. So there's a lot of time to do that. And I always appreciate it when storytellers take the time to show rather than to just tell why their characters are the way they are, why they think and feel the way they do. And that context really helps the audience, and me especially, get real invested in what's happening, really get lost in the story. And so, yeah, I agree with you. Show, don't tell is very important in any medium, but I think especially in video games, they can do a better job with that. They tend to want to get to the action or to the gameplay so quickly that sometimes they don't take the time to show as well as they could. So I'm with you on that one. This last one, I must not have copied the name. I feel terrible. I should have done that. Ask the question. But here is the question. Do you feel some of the modern orchestral arrangements of classic OSTs have been over-arranged and lacking that focus on melody that made the original one so special? I just heard an upload of the new Distant Worlds in Cosmo Canyon. While very good at times, it has a lot of over-the-top elements that the original never had. Wide strings, clarinet runs, counterpoint that wasn't in the original. Would like to hear Mike's opinion on this. So I was actually at Distant Worlds when it was in Salt Lake a couple weeks ago. And I remember being very surprised that they had done an arrangement of Cosmo Canyon because it was not intended originally, of course, to be as much of the music in Final Fantasy VII actually is. It was not intended to be an orchestral piece. More ethnic instruments obviously would be more appropriate if we're trying to accurately portray what that original sound was supposed to be. Now, that being said, I don't have any problem with Distant Worlds doing an orchestral arrangement of it. I remember listening to it and liking it quite a bit. Because it's like, oh, this is, you know, the orchestral take on the song. It's not, I don't think it's attempting or trying to be accurate to the original as much as it is just let's do this for fun and see how we can, you know, do this melody and this piece in an orchestral arrangement. And for that, I think it was pretty good. For those of you who haven't heard it, actually, I kind of want to pull up as well the original song so you guys can get an idea of what we're looking at here. So if I go to my Final Fantasy folder, Final Fantasy VII, this is the song I was looking for. There we go. Similar theme. Let's get to the melody. There it is. Right, so you listen to that, and that's the instruments that they're using there are not in any way meant to be orchestral. And then here is the Distant Worlds version of it. This isn't the best recording. This is from someone's cell phone, but there it is. Use some woodwinds for the melody. Here it is. The snare there, the percussion is, you know, it's very different. It gives really a very different feel from the original song. And I think in a setting like this, a concert setting, that's fine. If they were to try and do this arrangement in, say, the Final Fantasy VII Remake with an orchestra instead of using like ethnic instruments, that's where I'd be like, okay, hold on. That's not right. That doesn't feel right at all. It doesn't match the setting of Cosmo Canyon. It just wouldn't feel right in any way. So in the concert setting, I think it's fine. But if they were to try and do that in the game, I would not be okay with that. I thought of a couple of other examples of recent rearrangements in games that, at least in some instances, I'm not saying like every single song is worse off in the Final Fantasy X HD remaster from the original. But I think the battle theme in particular is a really good example of what you're getting at. So if we go here, this is the original battle music. Take note of how percussive it is, how distinct each note of the melody can be heard. Okay, and then we'll hear what it's like in the remastered version. Real quick comparison. That part especially. Like, while the HD versions is a wider sound, a fuller sound, I would say, you lose the real distinct, punctual, percussive quality of that original piece. While this does not sound as big or full, maybe a little bit flatter in the mix, a little bit, that is so distinct. It's snappy. It feels really good. And here it's I mean, it's the same notation, but it's just like it's lost a little bit. That melody is lost, buried a little bit underneath this kind of like wide sound. It's still there. You can still hear it. But it's just not punchy like the original was. I think that this happens often with older games that have remasters and that try to upgrade the arrangements of the music. Because especially for really older games, you're going back to the PlayStation 1, the Super Nintendo, and the NES, all of those sounds that they used in the music were real punchy, real percussive in nature. And they created this like really unique genre almost that's just totally unlike anything else out there. And melodies really drove that music back then. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that there wasn't voice acting or, you know, performance capture or anything like that. And so the music in terms of audio, aside from, you know, a limited number of sound effects, was how you would express emotion to the character. I mean, you obviously have text and dialogue, but even that was limited quite a bit on the NES with how much you could put into the game in terms of text. And so a lot of times they had to rely on the music to communicate the mood, the feeling, the atmosphere, the emotion of the characters. And so they tended to, you know, even when you're playing the game in gameplay, you know, in order to keep things interesting, if you're doing a lot of repetitive tasks, having this really cool, driving, percussive music in the background would sort of like help with any kind of monotony, I think. It would make the game feel more exciting as you're playing it. And so they really relied on these catchy melodies and these punchy melodies that really stick with you. And as video games became more and more advanced and started to become more and more film-like in their presentation, I think that, especially with, you know, the tools that we have now for orchestration and stuff like that, where you know, even I have access to sound libraries and everything like that, like instrument libraries that sound almost indistinguishable from a real orchestra. And so with that came more cinematic feeling OSTs for these games as well. And so, you know, it's really great in one sense. You can get this awesome atmospheric music that you wouldn't have been able to get before. But I think that it's much harder to do the kinds of melodies that they wrote earlier in the, you know, development of gaming than they can do now with those kinds of instruments. So it's really a question of like, which instruments do I use to represent or to more accurately reflect that like quality of the instruments that existed before. And it's not always an easy thing to do. And I think that's why, in particular, Final Fantasy X Remaster's soundtrack has a lot of songs that were altered quite a bit from the original. Besaid Island comes to mind. They had like this like drum kit in the originals, and then they don't even have that at all in the HD remaster, and they use a piano in that version versus the synthesizer that they used in this. It's really tough to translate music like that into an orchestral arrangement, and it's not always, or I would say even rarely, very successful. I mean, some songs were obviously written with the intent of being or sounding orchestral to begin with. And so those songs translate very well in the Distant Worlds arrangements, for instance. You know, like Final Fantasy VII's main theme is a good example. A lot of Final Fantasy VI's music was meant for that. And so obviously some songs translate extraordinarily well because they were meant for that, but others were not. Final Fantasy VII's soundtrack, I'm really, really interested to see the way they go with it. I hope they don't go too... Well, I guess with like Crisis Core, for instance, I guess you could get kind of an idea of one way they could do it, where a lot of that soundtrack is not orchestral. They have a kind of a wide array of different sort of instruments they use in that. But like, you know, I think about, is it this one? I think about songs like this. You can't arrange that with it and get the same feeling out of it, like at all. That's not the one I'm looking at. What's the other song I was looking at? Obviously, they have a lot of like rock elements in the battle music and stuff like that. But what's the song I'm looking for? This one. This is one of my favorite songs on the Final Fantasy VII soundtrack. I love the bass. Like, really unique music in Final Fantasy VII that created like a totally like interesting, and I'm using the same word again, but unique atmosphere for that game that just would not be the same with an orchestral arrangement for those songs. And so a lot of times, I don't think that orchestral arrangements of these, a lot of these songs of this music makes a lot of sense. However, in this environment, in the Distant Worlds concert environment, I think it's still fun to hear, a take on that melody with an orchestra. But I agree with you. You lose a lot when you do that. It's not the same. And if they were to try and do that in the game itself, kind of like they did with Final Fantasy X in some ways, you lose something there. It's not the same, and it's not always the best choice in my opinion. So that's my thoughts on that. It is now 1:51 a.m. where I'm at. So I should probably close this up, get this podcast ready to be uploaded tomorrow. Next week, we should be on track to have all of us here again and beyond. But let me know what you guys think of this new template that we have. I think it should work at least for a little while here for the immediate future until we get the studio back there all finished so that we can come together for the podcasts again. But give me any suggestions that you have, any ways I can improve the look of this, and maybe make space for guests to be on it or whatever. Just let me know. Let me know what you get. Excuse me. Holy crap. Let me know what you guys think. And as always, if you're listening to this audio only, please go ahead and check us out on YouTube at Dark Pixel Gaming, or you can find our filmmaking and visual effects work at Dark Pixel, just Dark Pixel. Anything else? Anything else I'm forgetting before I go? Not really. Still working on the Final Fantasy XII review. That should be out soon. Soon, and by soon I mean like within the next month or so. I've done a lot of research on it, and I've got the development history portion of the review pretty much locked down. Now I just need to get into analyzing the story and the gameplay and writing all that. But I will. I'll keep working on that, and I'll keep updating you guys. And hopefully it'll be really great. The Zodiac Age comes out in less than 2 weeks. Should be next week sometime, I think on Tuesday. Next Tuesday. I'll do some streaming of that if you guys want to see that. I also still need to play the episode Prompto of Final Fantasy 15. I wanted to do a stream of that as well, but just have not had time. But in any case, thank you for watching. Thank you for all your support. Ask any questions that you have in the comments. I'll do my best to answer as many as I have time to do. And as always, if you'd like to submit a question to the podcast, you can do it right here in the comment section, but we always go to our Patreon first. So if you're a patron, please ask on Patreon, and we will always consider those questions first before moving on to YouTube. You could also ask us questions on our Discord server. If you're not on our Discord server, you totally should be, because it's awesome, and a lot of great people are there discussing all kinds of great stuff. So link in the description. Join our Discord server, and we'll see you guys again real soon. Thanks for watching, and peace out.